Today is 26th of August. Now it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Saturday, and even though it's my day off on Saturdays, I'm here. I'm now in Moscow. You can recognize this area straight away, I guess. This is Moscow city, of course, and I decided to begin today's update, which will be uploaded later on in the evening, if I manage to record this video. And I decided to begin this first update for this season from Moscow, from this area, because as we all know, Zelensky and his associates are quite keen to damage this area. And recently, one of their leaders of Kiev regime, they even made a statement that they are trying to influence citizens of Russia, Muscovites or guests of capital, psychologically, maybe to scare people. That's why they are striking Moscow city. But as you can see, plenty of people, and this place definitely don't look like anybody is scared Zelensky or his associates or anything that they can throw at us. So once again, this is a business district of Moscow, capital of Russian Federation, and as you can see, it's quite busy, quite active, and well, today's update will be a little bit different from other ones. I will record different parts of update in different places in capital, and now I will just record a little more for Patreon here in Moscow city, and then I will continue in some other areas of capital. By the way, if you are interested on my Patreon, if you want to support my work through Patreon, you can see links on this video in the description box or in the pinned comment. I will continue later on. So while I'm here not far away from Moscow city, let me share with you news from this morning, which is about yet another failed attempt from Zelensky and his associates to strike deep inside Russian territory in direction of Moscow city, business district of Russian capital. And according to information that we are getting from media outlets and from Russian officials, air defense systems did manage successfully to neutralize that drone before it managed to reach Moscow city. Unfortunately, this is not the first, and I'm afraid not the last time when Ukrainian forces are conducting such a terrorist activity, but this will probably continue until Western so-called elites are continuing to support Zelensky and his gang with technology, with military equipment, and with intelligence. Now, before I continue with some other news, let me share with you a quick short summary of the situation on the front line. So let's begin from southern sectors of the front up to northern ones. So on Kherson region, there is no significant changes have been reported by Russian media or defense ministry. Mainly, it's artillery duels between the sides and recon operations. Constant fight for control over these small islands on the bank, on the Dnieper River and the delta of that river. When it comes to Zaporozhye and South Donetsk sectors of the front, of course, there are some significant developments, especially in Zaporozhye area. And by the way, right now I'm on the bank of the Moscow River, which is crossing Moscow, central parts of Moscow, busy river with the tourist boats, with river transport. And well, when it comes to Zaporozhye region, of course, main hotspot is Rabotina settlement. And according to latest reports, despite all the attempts from Ukrainian forces, despite the fact that they did throw into this battle for Rabotina more than 10 units from more than 10 brigades, including brigades that are strategic or used to be strategic reserves of Ukrainian forces, namely 82nd Brigade and 13th Brigade. Despite all that attempts, all that effort, southern part of Rabotina is still under control of Russian forces, and it seems like Ukrainian side did change a little bit of its that tactics, and now they are trying to establish some control over the fields between Verbova, and Rabotina. Constant clashes between the sides in that area. But when it comes to Rabotina itself, there was some reports that Russian forces even did manage to conduct a local scale offensive operation and regain partial control over the some territories in the central part of Rabotina. But yet again, I did not see video confirmation of that information. Probably we will see some video or photo materials about it later on during the day. But overall situation on Zaporozhye front line, I will say it's not exactly the operational pause at this point. We are seeing second wave of offensive or counteroffensive, but very unsuccessful, as it was predicted by me and by many other commentators and even military experts. So I guess it will stay. This way, even if eventually Ukrainian forces will manage to establish control over the Rabotina. It would not help them to achieve any more or less significant success on these sectors of the front. Ukrainian forces would not be able to cut that ram bridge between Crimea and mainland Russia, and it's too obvious now, even for die-hard supporters of Zelensky and his criminal associates, I guess, because if Ukrainian forces, all the strategic reserves of Ukrainian army are unable to swiftly establish control over the Rabotina, one small village, you tell me if they are capable to reach Tokmak, let's say, or reach Melitopol and then Berdyansk to cut that land bridge between Crimea and mainland Russia. Of course not. And when I was reading some news this morning, I did think to myself that, well, we truly are seeing what I was predicting for a long time. Washington and London pushing Zelensky and Ukrainian armed forces towards their doom, towards their decimation, basically. That's what is happening, and I guess main interest of Washington and London in this case, is that they want to make sure that once Poland and some other NATO member states that are bordering Ukraine, Western Ukraine, once they will send troops in these western regions of Ukraine, they will receive as minimal resistance as possible, because well, most battle capable or battle ready units of Ukrainian military will be neutralized by Russian forces for that time. And we are definitely observing or seeing now uh, very this development, that Ukrainian armed forces have been decimated by Russian army. But anyway, let me continue. When it comes to South Donetsk direction, even though there were some reports that Ukrainian side did deploy additional forces in direction of Removsky Ledge and Ugledar, we did not see same level of activization of Ukrainian army as we are observing in Rabotina area. And I guess it will stay this way, because my understanding is that extreme lack of manpower and military equipment is beginning to play a huge role in this counteroffensive. Zelensky and his associates, they just don't have enough manpower and military equipment to continue local scale offensive operations in multiple directions same time, simultaneously. So I guess at least for the time being, on South Donetsk sector we will see this operational pause. And then when it comes to Donetsk direction, it's usual stuff: artillery duels between the sites, recon operations, and constant attempts from Russian forces to cut or at least significantly disrupt logistical lines of Ukrainian army that are used in Donetsk direction, that are used not just forces in, let's say, Krasnogorovka, Avdiivka or Marinka, but also very same logistical lines are used by Ukrainian forces in Ugledar and Ugledar area, and in the so-called Vremovsky Ledge. So because Ukrainian side is not that active on South Donetsk direction, we may probably say that Russian side is quite successful in disrupting these supply lines. Even though, of course, major reason in my understanding for that operational pause in South Donetsk sector is lack of manpower and military equipment on behalf of Kiev regime. And when it comes to Bakhmut, northern flank of Donetsk direction, Bakhmut or Artyomovsk and its flanks, initiative is on Russian side, and today, this morning, I did read some reports that it's Russian forces now that are conducting these local scale offensive operations to regain control over the territories that was lost during previous several months of these local scale offensives from Ukrainian side. Initiative totally is in Russian hands, and I don't expect Ukrainian forces will manage to achieve any visible or more or less significant success in this area. It's not happening. And when it comes to northern sectors from Seversk to Kupiansk, of course, we all know that it's the Russian forces that are pushing forward or moving forward in those sectors of the front. And the only question remains at this point when Moscow will greenlight large-scale offensive operations of Russian army. And by the way, there were some reports that Zelensky and his associates move some of the units from 13th Brigade, most capable units, in direction of Kupiansk. And as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, 13th Brigade is also part of this so-called strategic reserve of Ukrainian army. And well, if they are moving, if they are beginning to use 13th Brigade also, then probably we would not be mistaken if we will say that Ukraine has no strategic reserve no more. All the units, all the more or less battle ready or capable units are now engaged one way or another in local scale battles from southern sectors up to northern ones in Kupiansk and Kharkov region in general. So this is when it comes to short summary of the situation on the battlefield. As I mentioned, today's update gonna be a little bit different or significantly different in comparison to other ones, but hopefully you will find this video interesting, not just because of news but also because of this views of some areas of Russian capital. As I mentioned, I'm right now on the bank of the Moscow River. And by the way, I will continue this update from some other place in a couple of minutes. So let's continue with the news and next information exactly about lack of manpower in Ukrainian army. And we have a report that according to head of Ukraine's National Security and Defense Council, Danilov, in next couple of days or weeks, Zelensky and his associates will begin yet another wave of mobilization in Ukraine. So basically this is a confirmation, direct confirmation that Ukrainian armed forces do lack manpower, and this is one of the reasons why they are unable at this moment to conduct multiple local scale offensive operations on several directions as they were doing for the last 2 or 3 months. So quite interesting news. And by the way, you can see their building, which is White House. The name for this building, local name, not official, it's White House. This building is Office of Russian Government. So for many of you probably this information is not new, especially if you are visiting Moscow, but for some members of our community this may be interesting detail. So let me continue with some other news also. And by the way, Russian media is reporting that air defense systems did shut down several drones today in just a sec. Several drones in Belgorod region. Yes, I wanted to make sure that I'm not messing up, because as we all know, Ukrainian forces are trying to strike not just Belgorod but Kursk, Bryansk regions and many other regions also. So Russian air defense system was quite active in Belgorod region. And well, also you may find interesting news that second ship since the end of grain deal, or since the pause that was introduced in grain deal, second ship did left Odessa port. Well, first ship did left Odessa port and the Black Sea. because it was, according to Turkish statements from Turkish officials, that ship was has nothing to do with the transportation of agricultural produce, including grain. That ship was a cargo ship, and containers was transported. But this one, well, we don't really have yet information what type of ship this one is. But well, if it's full with the grain, I guess Russian militaries will stop it. If not, then this ship probably will also will be allowed to leave area of Black Sea that is controlled by Russian Black Sea fleet. And that's been said, I will continue from some other place. So next news is about next news reported by RIA Novosti, according to which Biden in 2024 may push Zelensky and his associates to conduct some negotiations with Moscow. And well, this information is based on article in Bloomberg, according to which Biden's White House is becoming a little bit or quite significantly impatient with Zelensky and his associates, especially because of the lack of any results on behalf of Ukrainian armed forces when it comes to this so-called counteroffensive. And well, before elections, according to Bloomberg, current administration of US will begin to not just distance themselves from the Kyiv regime, but also a demand from Kyiv to conduct some sorts of negotiations with Moscow, so that White House can present this as a kind of victory in pre-election time, which is quite possible at one hand, but same time, you know my take on this Ukrainian crisis. I'm quite sure real rulers in the Western world, including in the USA, are now concentrated on neutralization of Ukrainian armed forces, so that when Poland, Romania, Slovakia, some other NATO member states will try to establish control over the western regions of Ukraine, they will receive minimal resistance. So I'm quite sure, no matter what ideas are circulating in White House itself, or what ideas have Biden, I'm quite sure real rulers of the West will continue demand from Zelensky this counteroffensive to be continued, so that Russian forces will take care of vast majority of more or less battle ready or capable units of Ukrainian armed forces. And as I mentioned a few minutes ago, according to information that we are receiving, Kyiv is using now all its strategic reserves. All the Ukrainian brigades from strategic reserves are deployed on different sectors of the front, from the southern sectors up to northern ones. So let me share with you a few more topics from this area, and then I will continue from some other place. And by the way, you may find this interesting. Five members of EU under leadership of Poland, Eastern and Central European states, namely Bulgaria, Hungary, Poland, Romania, and Slovakia, are demanding from Brussels and are very keen to make sure that Brussels will listen. So they are demanding this grain ban or ban on Ukrainian grain and some other agricultural produce from Ukraine to be extended. Not really friendly move from these countries towards current regime in Kiev, isn't it? But yet again, as time goes by, we will. I'm quite sure we will see more and more instances when not just neighbors, NATO member neighbors of Ukraine, but also major states in NATO and the Western world will start their distancing themselves from Kiev regime. And also, let me share with you one more news from this spot here. You can see Moscow city, not far away, and I'm now on the bank of the Moscow River. And well, one more news is that or probably you already heard about it, that the foreign ministry of Niger demanded from France its ambassador to be recalled from Niger. And today we had some additional news that Niger's current leadership are not canceling diplomatic relations with France. They are just demanding French ambassador to be removed, other staff of French embassy, and at least for now, French militaries will continue to stay in Niger. This step, of course, a demonstration from current Niger's government that they are well informed that French elites or ruling class of France are intending to isolate current Niger's government and even conduct military operation or provoke military conflict between ECOWAS states and Niger. So this step definitely kind of demarche from Niger towards France, and let's say warning shot to stop, to change behavior. I don't think France, government of France will listen, or president of France, but at least we can say that Niger's government did try to avoid military confrontation with this type of still diplomatic warnings. And well, there are quite a few interesting news also that I want to share with you with this in this update, and I will continue. I will continue from some other spot in Moscow. As I mentioned earlier, today's update gonna be a little bit or quite different from updates that you see on my channel usually. Even though I did had some several walk and talk type of videos, also updates. And by the way, let me make little announcement, if I may, that in next week maybe, and after that on weekly basis, I will try to share new video on second channel on YouTube and Rumble under the name of From Russia with Levan. I will try to share new videos every week about Moscow region, about certain places, not just tourist destinations, but places that are popular among local residents. So hopefully, and of course, I will share some information about history of those places, and some cultural influence and so on. So hopefully you will find those types of videos interesting. If you are not subscribed yet on my second channel, please consider to do so. You will see links under this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. So as I said, I will continue with the update from some other spot. Just let me give you a quick view of this area. As I did mention many times before, I do love have some walk next to river banks. Whenever I have such opportunity, I always go to river for a walk. It's very comforting for me, at least. And I guess not just for me. Uh, it's very nice, really, to have a walk next to river. Very relaxing. And yes, as I said, I will continue. I will continue this update from some other uh, area of Moscow. Let's continue with news. And well, first of all, let me share additional news about that second ship that left Odessa port. According to latest news, I just checked information, and that ship is moving in direction of one of the ports of Bulgaria or Bulgaria in Narva, if I'm not mistaken. But on the informations, I did not find any notifications about cargo on that ship. So I guess if Russian side let that ship to leave area of Russian control of Russian Black Sea Fleet, then my guess is that there was nothing on that ship that will Russian side find unacceptable. What other explanation they can be, I don't know. But anyway, let's talk about some other news. And TASS news agency is reporting that during the previous 24 to 48 hours, there was several more incidents in Syria between Russian and U.S. coalition forces. And according to latest report, two F-35 fighter jets did approach Russian Su-35 fighter. And according to Russian side, these maneuvers that was conducted by U.S. Pilots were unsafe. Well, we can never know what took place in skies of Syria between the U.S. and Russian fighter planes, but we can say for sure that these type of incidents are becoming almost a daily routine now, which is a big deal in my understanding, because at one point any error can cause huge escalation. Any error, or even oh, sorry, some renovation work is taking place there, and because of this, there is so many such incidents, not just in the air, but also on the ground. But any error, mechanical or human error, can cause extreme escalation between the sides. Extreme escalation, and then we are on entire world will enter, not just we, but entire world will enter some hot waters, because we are talking about two major nuclear powers in this world. And let me anyway when it comes to Syria, it's just too obvious that it's only a matter of time when U.S. forces will withdraw from Syria, and coalition forces in general, because it was only Russia and Russian will or Russian position that were protecting those forces in Syria. But now, when US and other NATO members are acting against Russia extremely hawkishly, and are escalating constantly, then I'm quite sure it's only a matter of time and those forces of NATO states will be basically evacuated from Syria. That's how significantly the situation will probably deteriorate for them. But hopefully, leadership of Western states will realize this and withdraw their forces without some extreme forms of escalation. Because after all, Russia is legally in Syria. Russia was invited by Syria's government. US and NATO member states are not welcome in Syria and are illegally occupying territories in that country. And by the way, one more news, and then I will continue from some other area of the city. And this news is reported by RIA Novosti, according to which Russian President Vladimir Putin will not participate in G20 summit in India in person. So this question was unanswered, at least up till now. There were some rumors that Putin may travel to India, but seems like this decision was made in Kremlin, and Putin will participate in G20 summit by video link, and Russian delegation probably will be headed by Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, like it happened during the BRICS summit in South Africa, just recent summit of BRICS. Anyway, there are quite few news updates left that I want to share with you for this moment, and if I may, I will continue from some other area, from some other spot. So I will share one more news from this spot here. As you can see behind me, it's a building of Foreign Ministry of Russian Federation. Quite a tower of Soviet era, Stalin era, and probably you all know history of this type of buildings. It's 7 buildings that have almost similar design that were built during the Soviet era, during the reign of Stalin, and all those buildings are in different areas of Moscow. The name is, locals do call them Seven Sisters, and in one of them is Foreign Ministry of Russian Federation. But when it comes to news, by the way, when it comes to news, time to time I do forget that this is a news update, not a tourist guide through Moscow. And well, when it comes to news, one more news that I want to share with you is about BRICS and enlargement of BRICS. According to as this, I did check microphones. So according to reports in Russian media, BRICS, after new members will join BRICS, this organization will become a major player in the energy sector, which is quite correct, because if until now it was Russia main energy producer in BRICS, although Brazil is also playing quite significant role in energy segment. But after enlargement of BRICS, which will happen from 1st of January 2024, of course, this organization will become much more influential on the world stage. especially in terms of energy sector, because Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates are joining BRICS, and as we all know, Saudi Arabia has immense influence in the Persian Gulf region, and if Saudi Arabia on the board, then you can say that majority of Persian Gulf states will also pursue politics that will be prioritized by Saudi Arabia. There may be some differences in relationships, let's say, between Saudi Arabia and Qatar, but by the way, Qatar is also, which is a major exporter of LNG. But Qatar also is on the route to normalize relationships with Saudi Arabia, and after Iran and Saudi Arabia did manage to deal with some major issues that were kind of barriers, significant barriers in diplomatic relationships between two countries. Then, of course, Qatar will resolve its issue with Riyadh without doubt. So, yes, in this term, in terms of energy, of course, enlargement of BRICS is also extremely important. And by the way, some Russian media outlets also report that this development was taken personally by current bureaucracy of EU, especially by von der Leyen and Ursula and Josep Borrell. These two individuals basically are representing nowadays EU, and well, these two bureaucrats were failure from very beginning, and if they are taking enlargement of BRICS as their personal fail, then well, let's be it. Let's be so. I don't think anyone will drop a single tear for these two clowns, really, that are representing EU on the world stage. So this is one more news that I wanted to share with you about BRICS, and I do have one more information also from from sectors of economics, and I will share that news on in some other area. So, dear friends, as you can recognize, I'm now on the Red Square. You can see St. Basil's Church, towers of Kremlin Mausoleum, which is also on the Red Square, and on the opposite side, it's one of the most famous, I guess, shopping malls in the Russia and even former Soviet Union, GUM. Well, hopefully you will find today's update interesting. And last news that I like to share with you is about speed railway that will be speed rail that will be built between Moscow and St. Petersburg in coming years. And Russian media outlets did report that some of the biggest Russian banks will participate in financing of this project. Among them, Sber and Gazprom Bank. So I guess in 5 to 8, maximum 10 years time, there will be speed rail between Moscow and St. Petersburg, which will significantly increase, which will significantly increase economical development of both sides, both cities, and interconnection and integration of economies of two major cities of Russia, which will eventually benefit, of course, entire entire country. And yes, this is gonna be last news for today's update. I did try to make this video as interesting and informative as possible, and well, hopefully you will find it interesting. Simultaneously with this update, I was making videos for Patreon, some extra content for Patreon, and also videos for second channel from Russia with Levan. So so please don't be too critical. I did try my best to make this update interesting. After all, it's my day off today, supposed to be day off. Anyway, I wish you a great day, and take care. See you tomorrow.